It's fine.
Hello, welcome to the Sweet Talk. Today is Thursday, May 21st, right? Yes, May
I'm losing track of
21st.
days. That sounds right.
May 21st, 2020. And I am your host, Kim Mattina. I am a gold product expert for the Google for Education team, a Google certified trainer and educator, as well as a technology teacher. And today I'm so happy to have on my show my friend. We go back a long way. Miss Leanna Mullen. She is actually, I have to read it from her notes. She is a manager of district communications for the Egg Harbor Township School District for 6 years. And I'm so proud of her because she is in the doctoral program at Wilmington University. And she's here to share her research with us. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kim. Yeah, we do go back a while. Had to think about where we left off in Hamilton, and then went our own ways. But it's good stuff. Good stuff.
It is. Oh my gosh! Like I was telling my husband, like, I can't believe you're at Egg Harbor for 6 years now. Like,
yeah, that time added up quick, right?
Yeah, it went fast. Like where we were then and where we are now and what we're doing and how we're.
I wore my Ed Camp set in 2015 shirt before I came on.
That's funny. You know what? In my Facebook feed, I had that picture of me, you, Lang, Scott, and Lou when we took that selfie at the table. That came up in my Facebook feed from 2015. It's just
I guess Lou's probably the only one left right now, right? Like I guess in their own ways.
Wow. He's the only one left there. He's the new tech coordinator there.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's all good for him. But I just just so much happened since then. Like it's just crazy how time flies. But we're both still, impacting education and making a change, and hopefully, for the good and for positive results. And I know, you've been really busy with, with schoolwork and doing your job and doing your own thing with your own business with video productions. And I am so amazed on like how you handle it all. I've always been like, envious of that you can just juggle all that and just seem seamlessly, like you're not stressed out.
Kim,
you don't look stressed out anyway.
Books and being certified in just about every possible ed tech, instructional technology thing you could possibly be in. So we're just doing it different, but we're both doing the same thing.
I know. But it's just funny how people just handle it differently. It's just like, whew, you handle it like a pro. That's all I have to say. You always did, and you always will. I know you will. So it's all good. But I know that you're doing research on the millennial teachers. Mm-hmm. That's your topic, and I'm really, really curious to hear about that topic and how to prevent teacher burnout. Because educators today, whether you're millennial or not, you could be a veteran teacher as well, you do experience some type of burnout real quick.
Right, especially in this environment right now, for sure.
Especially during this pandemic, right? So I'm really curious to hear what you have to say, what you found out, because I don't know if you can really say it's a millennial thing. I just had somebody at my school, in my school district, was working there for 14, 15 years. And he just quit.
Wow.
He quit and he moved and he started something totally new. So like me personally, I don't think it's a millennial thing. I just think it's so much that falls on our plates that, people have a different way of handling that stress. And some people can handle it better than others, and things come up, But what do you like? I want to hear what you have to say about it. So why don't you start talking about your research and enlighten us on this topic?
Well, Kim, let me start by asking you, when you think of the word millennial, what comes to mind, good or bad? What words come to mind? Top of your head.
Well, young people.
Okay.
Young people. Young people that were born in like the 90s.
Okay.
Technology savvy, kind of like, they can work a device
Mm-hmm.
and get around using a device, but not necessarily know how to troubleshoot a device.
Okay. All right. I think it's pretty fair. I've had way worse. I'll take all the compliments I can get.
Well, I'm trying to think of my kids, right? Because my kids are
Yes,
millennials.
exactly.
So, you're talking about, kids that are what? My kids are 24 and 22.
So the unofficial, according to Pew Research and some other literature to back it up, says that millennials were born from 1981 to 1995. So people mistake the youngest adults right now. They're actually part of Generation Z. But yes, that's kind of the unofficial break off is right around 95.
So from 96 up, it's Generation Z.
Yes.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I have one in each.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the kids that are in school right now are part of the Alpha generation.
So from what
that's
age?
I'm not as familiar with that age group, but I believe that's right about 2008, 2010.
Okay. So that's interesting that they broke it up that way, because I would have thought the millennials were the kids in the 90s, not the 80s.
Yeah, a lot of them were. So there's also within the millennial group, there's two sort of break-offs. There's the ones who were born in the early 80s into right about 88 is like the first group. And then into the second group are called the younger millennials. And again, that's kind of like when you think of avocado toast in Starbucks, that's kind of right around where that starts and into Generation Z.
That's funny because honestly, like my son, okay, so he's 24. He was born in 95. So, I had a computer for him, desktop computer. There was no tablets or anything like that. It's just weird that they go that age, the way they broke it up from 81. Like I would think it would have been definitely from the 90s, because in the 90s you're using a little bit of the tech. So the internet was out in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
Not in the 80s.
So where this came from is originally, as far as like how generation divides came from, originally it was based on the census. And when it was like every 20 years was a new group. So that's where that 80 came from. Like okay. I said, it's softened over the years. It doesn't quite match up exactly like that, but that's originally where they came up. We were Generation Y. That's where now it's Generation Z. Generation X was before X, Y, Z. And it's based off of the census. I don't need to bore you with all those.
Well, I find that interesting. So you're Generation Y.
Yes, I would be 100% diehard millennial, right smack in the middle of 89.
89. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm X.
Yes.
I'm the X generation.
Well, okay. And if you're close to, if you're earlier 80s, like if you were 78, 79, 80, 81, that's part of an in-between year. That would be Zennial.
Oh. Wow.
No, it's way more information than you needed, but
no, that's cool though. I want you to tell me that after we go off the air.
Okay. So talking about millennials specifically, like as that age group, now that we understand where the years came from, part of the two main experiences that these groups are identified by are the fact that a lot of them, if not all of them, were in school of some point with 9/11. And then also they were directly affected by the 2008 recession. So these are the two main monumental things that happened while they were in their most, growing up years, or like I said, depending on where they fell in the side of millennial, they might have been in grade school, they may have been in college, but overall, that's where those events happened. And a lot of that shaped who they are as people. The 9/11 event sort of brought about a new level of patriotism, a new level of responsibility for this age group. It saw what happened when people get together and do big things to make, like we're talking like the things that happened at post 9/11. And then into 2008, a lot of them were either in college or just about to enter college when 2008 and the recession hit. And again, that's a really big thing for them because a lot of them were just in college or getting out or getting in. And the effects of the job market the lack of availability of advancing or finding things within their field, the student loans they had to take out and then ultimately could not pay back right away because they weren't meeting those things that they needed to. And as a result, they are also more fiscally responsible because of they saw those immediate effects. So even though they're known as being strapped by student debt, overall, they tend to be more thrifty. They tend to care about their financial stake, and they don't just make the spontaneous purchases or they are more geared toward for the renting situation. They haven't really gotten into, a lot of them have not bought homes yet because they feel that uncertainty. And especially now with the pandemic being a almost repeat in just so many years later, that now these are the same people who are working adults who have now gotten the jobs that they maybe had sought to get, are probably the best prepared out of all the groups because those foundation years really dictated how they became adults.
That's interesting because as you're speaking, I'm thinking, all right, my son was in kindergarten when 9/11 hit.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he was, 6,
Mm-hmm.
10 years later. So 2008, you said?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what? 2000. So that's 7 years later. So he was a teenager. So you're talking, I'm thinking you're talking people that are older, obviously, because, they understand the financial burden or the financial responsibility.
Exactly.
So now I'm thinking, okay, so they're probably like 30, around 30.
20s, 30s. Yep, that's where they are.
Okay. All right.
Like my sister, she was born in 94. So I was kind of doing the math when you were comparing to figure out what year she was in for everything.
Yeah.
She was coming into high school when I was, in college. So that would be 2008, right about.
Okay.
I graduated.
So you're saying that group of kids, they are a little bit more cautious on buying a home and they're more thrifty and they want to save money. They're trying to, okay. All right. I understand that part because that's something dramatic that they've experienced in their life that their parents probably didn't experience that part.
Right.
Okay. I'm with you. All right.
So, and also just one other point with that, the millennial generation prior to Generation Z was the most culturally diverse generation. They tend to have again, I'm speaking as an overall arch. This isn't going to follow every single person this way, but generally they tend to have more liberal views. They tend to be more accepting of other religions and other backgrounds because of the fact that they are so culturally mixed. And also from the technology piece, like you mentioned, thinking back to when I was in grade school, we had a computer in a classroom, but it wasn't necessarily something that we used every day. Like it was a big deal if the teacher printed out something.
Right.
We by the time I got into later elementary school, there were computer labs that we could go to as a special. So that compared to generations before me, wouldn't have had that opportunity. And I remember the first time I was online, I think I was in 3rd grade, like using the internet, waiting about 5 minutes for it to connect, to dial in. But now thinking all the way, like in that time from the 90s up until the mid 2000s, think of how much technology changes so much, but think of how much it changed from the 90s to the mid 2000s when people were, in elementary, high school age. So, that as a result of that, these people are more easier to adapt to technology. They're a little bit faster with figuring things out, just like you said. And I'll get into how that translates to them being a new teacher as well. So that was where I was going to segue into. So now that we talked about what millennials are like, let's think about what new teachers, like when you think of a brand new teacher, like fresh out of college, just finished student teaching back in May. What do you think of, what words come to mind when you think of new teacher?
Eager.
Okay.
Nervous. Overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Try to fit in, like you try to please people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot,
So thinking to the millennial group, that these are the new teachers that adapted to technology. They want to use education technology in their lessons. They're very excited to do new things, but they're very green. and they haven't learned classroom management yet. They haven't learned the day-to-day interactions of what it's like to work with kids. Like, they have these grandiose ideas of what it's like, that, going into the teaching profession, it's not going to be the highest paying career choice you could have gone. But you have this envision of 25 kids sitting around a circle at circle time, listening to you perfectly at every moment.
Yeah.
Not necessarily
No clue.
IEPs, 504s, ELL students, like all those factors, in addition to the fact that you're differentiating instruction based on the level of students. Like, you can be told all that in college, but until you're in a classroom, it's not like that.
It's definitely not like that. and even your field work doesn't prepare you enough.
No,
it really doesn't, because when you're on your own, you're on your own. Like, you'll have a mentor the first year, right? Like, new teachers still have a mentor, but back when I got out of school, I mean, I remember just being like overwhelmed. And then, like, how do you connect with these kids? Like, I was in elementary school. It was challenging. Yeah.
I mean, I think any teacher who ever went through their first year would absolutely agree with you. Like, going home crying, trying to figure out how to write these lesson plans, and what they tried to do today obviously didn't work out the way they thought, or it only took them 15 minutes. And what are they going to do with the other 45? Like, that's part of that's getting used to the job. But what we're finding is, and like you said, this isn't specifically just for millennials, but it's being found that even more so, that there's less millennials, even if we were to think about Generation Z, it's the same problem. This new group of young adults are not entering the education field nearly in the numbers that they were 20, 30 years ago. And they're also dropping out of being a teacher at a much higher rate. As many as 1 in 10 don't even finish their first year.
Wow.
Like, they leave within the first year, 1 in 10. And then almost half don't ever make it to tenure. They find a completely different career path and move on. So
why is that? So why is it? Because it's too challenging? Is it because they give up? Like, obviously they give up, but why? Like, is it because it, like, I would think, well, maybe not that generation, but maybe the newer generation. I'm getting mixed up between the generations.
Yeah, if millennials and Z's are close enough that you're fine.
I'm thinking like that generation, those group of kids, they would be able to multitask, like how these kids today multitask, and be able to handle those demands. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Is it complete, like it obviously it's challenging, but is it just not seeing that through, and then they just give up and they say, you know what, this is it, I'm done, I'm moving on? Or is it more than that? Like, I don't know. I mean, we could discuss this for a long time.
For all of my dissertation.
What's that? Say that again.
Like, what actually, if we could pinpoint to one or two things, is this group lacking or not?
What is it?
Support.
Is it like not their passion? Like, it's not what they thought it was, so I quit. Now I'm going to move on to something else. Like,
well, it's a multi-stage problem. So if you talk about that, the kids that are in high school are not pursuing education in a major. That's your first sign that there's an issue, right? So if you think about that group, teaching doesn't have the same
gratification,
romance to it. Like it like people understand the realities of being a teacher at this age now, and they realize that there's not the same need for it. I mean, if you think about how much we're gearing our students to become interested in STEM and STEAM things, I mean, they're being not exactly coerced, but they're seeing that there's jobs in being with coding, or there's jobs working with computers or some sort, or whatever, data, things like that. So the field of interest of education just generally has sliced the pie. But going beyond that, you think of they're not immune to social media or the news. They see that teachers are underpaid. They see that there's state mandates that are not executed properly, or there's too many restrictions for being a teacher, that they hear a lot of negatives with education. So why would you want to get involved in that? It's the first problem. But going into the fact that you then have a group of people who do decide to pursue education as a major, you'll find that that same group does not completely understand, even though, like you said, that they have clinical, that they have student teaching, that they go through their coursework. It's not that they're not academically prepared, or that they don't know their subject well. It's more and I'm going to apologize in advance. My husband's walking in the door, so
that's okay.
Dog for about 30 seconds if they bark. But the other part of that is, lost my train of thought. So
we were talking about the other group that sticks with the education.
Yeah. So
track.
The problem being, in my opinion, based on the literature that I've researched so far, is that the orientation program for new schools to accept their new teachers in, like assuming they get the job, that they got that far. I'm making a generalization again here. Schools don't generally prepare their new teaching staff for what the realities are of a classroom. And even if you had an experience in that same district, when you are left alone in a room for 6 hours out of the day with no other, even if you have a great PLC, great internet PLN, you are in a room by yourself as sometimes the only adult. And it's up to you to meet all of the expectations. And I think that when you get into then worrying about Danielson, and then you get into worrying about your evaluations, and you get into, all the things that they are not really exposed to, all of what is from the day that they start. And, then you have to worry about like reading levels for your kids, or figuring out where they left off, or you're trying to just even know their personalities, things that, again, teachers who've done this for years know what's expected of them. They're used to the routine, but it's a lot. You have to, it's like you're left out of an airplane, and you have to start running as soon as you hit the ground, because you just got to go with the flow. And I feel that the orientation process in public education is not long enough. I don't think it offers enough quality information for the teacher to have a full understanding of what the environment is like, not only from a working with students aspect, but, intermixing with your peer, colleagues, or, having the background of the students that you work with. Like, you don't get that within 2 days of an orientation. You can't. You're too busy worrying about, I finally got my first job. I wonder how direct deposit's going to work. I wonder if my
take the Aflac.
Yeah. And meanwhile, that's so much of what the orientation is geared toward, unfortunately, that they're not spending any time on things that actually matter to being a first-year teacher. So I think in addition to an extensive orientation process coupled with a 90-day onboarding program, more than just what the state of New Jersey offers from a mandate with mentoring, I think there needs to be a cohort that meets regularly to hash out some of these things, to bring supervisors or administrators in to answer questions, like the dumb things of like, I don't know the code for the printer.
Yeah.
Like things that everybody takes for granted doing every day. Like if that time was set up, there's enough information, I feel, in the literature to prove that if a teacher is supported through those first 90 days, they're more likely to stay in the profession, not only through that first year, but through tenure. Like they're more likely to stay if they feel that connection from the very beginning.
I get that. Like when I left, Hamilton and went to Galloway, even though, I've had, more than 10 years experience, I was still put into a new teacher learning program, because they want all their teachers, new teachers, even veteran teachers like myself, but I was new to the district. They want them all to be aware of certain, guidelines. If you have any questions, you collaborate with that group. It was great because, each school district does something different. And I found it to be very helpful, actually, because it answered a lot of my questions. And that was provided like once every 3 months. So we met like 4 times.
Okay.
For, an hour, up to 2 hours after school. And the newbie teachers, because there was I felt like I was the old lady in the group, you know what I mean? And because all the new teachers just graduated college. and they were there, and they were, conversing amongst themselves and getting familiar with, each other and their school climate policies or
Yep.
whatnot, and different things that school building does. And the facilitators, they provided all that information to everybody. So I do agree with that. I think that would be great, especially for new teachers that are just coming out of school. But what happens with the teachers that are, because I think, like, okay, they make it through the first year. It's a learning year,
Yep.
really.
Mhm.
The second year, okay, they build a little more confidence. They don't have a mentor now, so maybe they should continue to have a mentor for the second year. Maybe they should meet like once a month or once every 2 months the second year, because they're still learning. They're not they're it's sink or swim, right? Like, that's how I think our profession is. It's either sink or
I
swim.
agree. I agree.
And I think, I think you're right. Like, if you give them more guidance throughout their time, not only in the first 90 days, but beyond, like, maybe it should be like a 3-year or a 2-year cohort where you meet with people in your, in your school that were hired when you were hired or
Mhm.
whatnot. And you just, because there's things that you don't know, just school stuff.
Mhm.
Just school stuff. You just don't know. Like you said, like the code for the copier,
Yeah.
or where do
Or
you
what are we supposed
order?
to do for a Halloween parade? Or what,
Yeah, like, just stuff.
when we have our spring concert, are we supposed, like, what are we supposed to do? Do we dress like all those
Yeah,
kind of, and
just those
generally,
general school climate questions.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great idea. So what happens after? Like, so what else does your research tell you? Like, when tenure comes, do they end up staying, or do they find themselves satisfied, or do they just leave the job? Like, what's the percentage with that?
Well, so going back to that, this isn't really just a millennial problem, thinking of just teachers in general. Um, the, you sort of know if you're going to be a lifelong teacher within the first year or two anyway. And that's where millennials will be more likely to go find something else, because they, again, thinking back to that recession mindset, they're not going to stay somewhere miserable. They're going to go find what makes them happy, and find, again, that, thinking of the teacher's salary, it's not as high as some of the other careers. So if you have a 4-year degree and you can get in somewhere else and you're not dealing with, everything that comes with being a teacher, some people will make that jump within the first year or two. Millennials specifically are tracked to every 3 years, they will change their job.
Wow,
That's a
really?
universal. Yes, that is a universal. They will have on average 11 job changes, not necessarily career changes, but job changes from the adulthood up through retirement is kind of the assumption that they're at.
Wow,
So
that's crazy.
yeah, so it's kind of, thinking back to the idea of teachers. It's been sort of assumed that if you're going to be a quote unquote career teacher, that you're going to be in it for 20,
25
maybe
years.
more years, and
Yeah.
that's not necessarily the direction that this group of people will be going. So,
And why is that? What drives them to leave, every 3 to 4 years? What drives them that? Is that money? Is it money? Is it, like,
it's money,
benefits?
small
What is it?
fraction. Benefits, you would think, would keep them there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, it's really just a matter of that they burn out. That they aren't willing to stay burned out, and if that means that they're not necessarily the type of people who will just up and quit, because they are usually thinking ahead of the next move. But that's a whole. So the one thing that I've learned with graduate school is that research is never done. And there's a million different ways you can take it. I think that knowing that my foundation idea is going to be concentrating on orientation and onboarding, I mean, in reality, I would have to track that cohort for maybe 10 or 15 years for me to find a real answer, to find out if it worked. So I'm going to be looking at it from like this very microcosm kind of idea of, at the end of onboarding and orientation, do these people feel like they're going to stay with the district? I'll have to survey them, and that's kind of that quantitative, qualitative research that comes with doing a project at this level. But reality, the hope would be that people would find enough interest in this topic that they would continue to do surveys, research, see how we can address this issue so that it doesn't, become an even worse problem for the upcoming generations.
That's interesting because I what you were saying before about they hear like the negative parts of education, or they see their parents like stressed out and working, at night or on the weekends, and just like really buried with grading and different things. So, I mean, like right there, just if you have a child that sees you that way, right there, I would think that would just deter them.
Yeah, think of the children right now who are watching their teacher parents who are in the middle of a pandemic trying to do a Zoom with 30 kids.
Yeah.
I mean, that,
It's crazy.
if you have a kid old enough to understand that doesn't seem fun to me.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, for me, I connected to what you said about the negativity around education with, being overloaded and, being expected to do certain things. And actually the pay, because starting salary for new teachers vary in districts. But when you're coming out of college and if you make 45,000, that's not bad. But then when you factor in all the work that you do, you do realize like, hey, I could do something else. You could, but yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think about that until you just mentioned that, because I mean, I guess I'm guilty of that myself, because my son was thinking about being an educator. I told him, don't do it.
Oh, I'll say.
Yeah.
You're not really being an advocate for it then, are you?
No, I mean,
I would be curious. You should ask him if it was you that suggested that he shouldn't pursue it, or if he lost interest. Or I would be curious for someone who is in that age bracket, if really that was the deciding factor.
He went to college, a community college, so he didn't go to 4-year school, and he was done.
I did the same thing.
He didn't want to go back.
I did 2 years and I took a break. I didn't at that point in my life, it didn't make sense for me. And it took 4 years to get back, and it was hard to go back.
Yeah, it's hard, but I was honest with him. I mean, it depends where you work. It really does, and it depends where you go and what you major in and what your actual direction is. If you're going to be a social studies teacher, well, you're not going to really find a job. But if you major in math, then that's a whole different ball game. So, for him, he didn't do that. He majored in, liberal arts, which was it's more general.
Yep.
So, it wasn't for him. So that was why we discussed it. But, I do relate to it. Like it's not for everybody. And I guess I admitted, like I did talk to him and kind of deterred him, because I could see him doing something else that would make him more, I don't know, I guess happy, So yeah, you definitely shed a light on my perspective there with him. That's for sure. Because
it's not a one size fits all kind of thing, but again,
it's not. But I think you're right though, because these kids today, like now I'm talking about my younger one. So he was born in 98. My older one, he's working and he's fine full time, and he actually bought a house. You know what I mean? So he doesn't fall into that. He's the younger part of that group. He's not the older part. He didn't experience like the recession. He was a teenager, But this one, like he's what was I going to say? I forgot what I was going to say.
Talking about your younger son and how he was able to buy a house and
I don't know.
in a recession.
No, that I
I have
was
the
not.
same problem. If you don't catch me in that
Yeah.
moment, I'm done.
Oh, I don't remember. But yeah, oh, I see. My younger one, I could see him like he wants he wants to do something that's going to make him happy. Like
Mhm.
like that, like
Yep.
he wants to be happy. Like so maybe that's kind of what this generation or that
That does
generation.
play into it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely because I could see a lot of that in his decision making, what he does, and he's happy. So what's wrong with that? I don't know, but it is a problem for education because if they graduate and they quit after, the first year, there's going to be a shortage.
And that's already a problem throughout the country. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not a new phenomenon, but it's only going to continue to get worse. And actually, not to go on a whole tangent, but just thinking about generations and things like that, there's supposed to be a very big drop off in college attendance in another couple of years. I forget what the exact date is. But that comes back to that in 2008, 9, 10, overall, people weren't having kids at that time.
Mm,
So you can imagine that there's going to be a like in a population aspect. So that group that should have that if they had kids that would have gone off to college, they're not going to. So you're going to find there's going to be a 2 or 3 year drop in just
drop off.
people.
Wow.
And we'll have to see with the pandemic how if that makes any difference for people. The longer that we're in this situation, that might make a difference for families for that too.
Yeah, that's definitely going to have an impact no matter what. But like it's funny that you even said too about like, we're pushing, STEAM and STEM and computer science to these kids, engineering and all that. Why would they want to go into education when they can go into a field and make, the potential of making a
Yeah.
lot more
Yeah, I
money?
mean, it's no secret that's where the jobs
No.
are. That's why we're pushing them for that, and that's where
Right.
the need is. I think the pendulum ultimately is going to have to come swinging back a little bit because you're going to have so many people who are math and science in another decade or so that you'll need to have some more of that. But then they've talked about this from Google's aspect too, that they know that they need art creative minds for some things. So even though we're going to have everyone trained in this direction, we're going to have to swing back a little bit the other way too. So
Doesn't it always cycle back somehow or another?
mhm.
Like when my son was in college, they somebody he was talking to, I don't know who it was. They said they like people who are well-rounded, well-balanced, well-rounded. They don't want you to be focused. I guess it was his counselor because he majored in liberal arts. You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? Because they don't want you focused on one specific area. They want you to be well-rounded. They want you to have like, the communication skills, the people skills are more important than ever anymore,
Mhm.
and plus all those other, vital skills, creativity and critical thinking and all that. But, is that true? Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't really know. And we won't know that for years to come,
And
right?
they say that all the time. We're preparing our kids for jobs that aren't there yet. We hear that all the time.
Yeah,
And
all the time.
we're assuming that's what the need is going to be, but until these kids are actually in these careers, will we actually
Will
know
we
the
know?
answer? But well-rounded is the way to be. That's why I mean, not in exactly the same way, but you think of my profession with video production. Back then you only need to be a reporter or you only need to be a camera person. Now you need to be your own camera person, your own reporter in some aspects, your own video editor, your own social media person. Like they expect you to know every aspect of media, and that's going to be with every job. I think you're going to have to know some aspect, a little bit of everything in order to be the candidate that a company wants to hire.
Yeah, I agree. I think well-rounded is the key term here, But yeah, it's interesting. I'm glad that you brought it up because and you spoke about it tonight because it does I do connect with a lot of that, being a mom of two of a millennial and then my younger one is, 9, he's what you said
Z.
generation Y,
Yep.
Z.
Yeah, the Z's younger one.
Yeah, so like I can relate to that, but it's interesting. It really is. And now like so his friends are graduating college
Hmm.
now. So this is Generation Z kid.
Uh-huh.
What's
Yep.
going to
The
happen
first
now?
groups of them.
You know what I'm saying? Like you don't know.
Because now they're going to have that exact experience that generation millennial did for a
Yeah.
lot of them, because they're going to run into that same problem with the job market. And, hopefully everything recovers like we're all hoping it will, but, it's not going to be an overnight thing no matter what people say. So it just, hopefully it bounces back faster than it did for the recession. But I think that it's an unfortunate event that we're all going to have to cycle through again.
Yeah, that's really interesting though. The 9/11 event and then the 2008 recession. That's interesting. I'm really like surprised about that. I don't know. Like I wouldn't have thought that deep into those two major events to have an impact on their education or
And they
their
were kids. It's not
track.
like they were adults, but like
Yeah.
that just proves that everything has an influence on
Interesting. Wow. That's oof. Well, you fast forward to now and you think these kids graduate in high school or college with this pandemic. Okay, so let's take the college graduate, right?
Mhm.
So what's the jobs market for them now? And plus, if they back a couple of years ago when they graduated college and they couldn't find a job in their major,
Mhm.
they would work in a restaurant, wait tables or bartend or whatever.
Yeah.
And they can't even do that now. Like, so it's just like, what's really going to happen? Like, you have all these student loans. It does kind of seem like a repeat of the 2008, at least for the college graduates, with the student loans and the job market being, concerning, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
I mean, so that's wow. Too deep. It's too deep for the sweet talk. It's too deep.
But it's it's something that anyone who's thinking about grad school, I mean, it definitely makes you think things through differently, and it makes you. I mean, even if I don't know what I'm going to necessarily do with the doctor when I'm done, but like as far as like just opening my mind to thinking differently and how I interact with people. I mean, this is a doctorate in organizational leadership, learning and innovation. They call it the OLI. It's just, I think that, it puts you in a different perspective, makes you think differently. And it really puts you at a deeper level of like
connection.
Yeah, exactly.
It's what it is. It's a connection, because I never thought of it that way. Like, not at all. Like, I never thought that those two events would have affected them that way. Like, it didn't come to my mind. Plus, I didn't like do the research like you did, but I just
I did a lot of reading. Trust me.
I just figured, forget about the education field, just the jobs, like just the job market alone. People going bankrupt and foreclosing on their houses and things like that happened back then. I didn't think that would have made them deter or quit an education track that they enrolled in.
Mm-hmm.
Never thought of that. Like, and it's just interesting. It's deep. It really is. It's interesting. I'm glad that you shed the light on me in this episode tonight.
Well, I mean, between you and if anybody out there ends up watching this later, I mean, if you have things that I can build on or just want to like hash this out some more, I mean, I'm in my second to last class right now. I'll be done in August, and then it's all dissertation from there. So that's going to be when I'm supposed to put my research into practice and actually later defend the dissertation. So I would love to hear from more people who are, what their orientations are like or onboardings like or what their first year was like. If there's any millennials out there that want to be like, yes, I agree, that happened to me or whatever. My contact information is available. So feel free to reach out. And,
make sure you put the contact information in the show notes. So if anybody does want to help you out with your research, that they can contact you,
Yeah.
Because that would help. Well, that concludes the show for tonight. I really appreciate you being on. I thought it was really interesting, totally different, but it's still related to education.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't talk Google Slides or anything like.
Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we don't. It's the sweet talk. Yeah. Tonight we took a deep dive connection. But it was really, I think it's significant because that's how we learn from that's how we learn from going forward, is like we have to look at our past, right? So we look at our past and we figure out what we did or what we could have done, or you look at different things and then you try to move forward from that experience and make it and change it. So it's just interesting to hear the similarities of things that happened in 2008 and now with the college graduates, and to see only time will tell, right? But hopefully we've learned from our mistakes then, and that the kids that are graduating college now won't have that roadblock, or won't have that kind of attitude toward their job or career. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
Right. So sure. Hopefully all we could do is hope, right? So, well, that concludes our show for tonight. I really appreciate you being on, Leanna. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kim. This is fun.
It was fun. It was fun. It's always great talking to my friends.
It was nice to catch up.
Yeah. And, I would just want to let you know, I'm really proud of you, just so you know. Really proud of you. I am.
When I write the book, after you write the book that you wrote, then you can be proud of me.
I am proud of you now. I am. I was always proud of you, but now after seeing you and catching up with you and hearing, how close you are to your to the end of your journey in your doctoral program, I'm really proud of you. So you're going to make a big difference in this world, and I know you already did. I'm going to stop.
Oh, don't do that.
So I'm going to conclude the show. I'm going to share my screen real quick so people don't see me teary-eyed. If you want to visit my websites, you can visit thesweettalk.com. That's the SUITE talk.com. And you can check out any past episodes that I've done on the episode page. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel, my newsletter. I'm on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Google Podcast as well. If you would like to be a guest on my show, you can fill out the guest form here, and it's not loading for some reason. It's still loading, but you can fill out the guest form, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I'm scheduling for the summer now. If you'd like to support my mission to pay it forward to help other educators stay in the field of education, you can become a sponsor, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. And one last thing here is I wrote a book with Alice Keeler. It's called Stepping Up to Google Classroom. It's 50 steps for beginners to get started. It's available on Amazon. And if you need help or if you need guidance on using Google Classroom, it's a great source. So with that being said, I'm back and I will say goodbye. You don't hang up, but I'm going to say goodbye to the audience. So until next time, have a great evening and thanks for tuning in, everyone. Bye.